Hello everyone, this is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and if you've been following my videos lately, you are probably now familiar with the underside of this Kenmore free arm sewing machine. It's a 158.1941 model, and if you've been following along, you know that this machine was abandoned, and I took mercy upon it and decided to see if I could rescue it. And as I've mentioned to you before, there are never any guarantees, but the quality of this machine is such that I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to try my best. And as you can tell, one of the reasons I suggest really looking at a sewing machine when you first get it is to assess just how much it will require to bring back. That doesn't mean you should not do so. In fact, bringing back an old sewing machine is incredibly rewarding, but you want to factor that in when you start negotiating what you're going to pay for it. This was given to me, and I knew that it had problems, so it's not as if I was misled, but I just wanted to let you see this and to see that even when a machine has been literally abused like this one has, it's not broken. It really isn't broken. So this is the underside. I think I mentioned to you all, I wanted to let the machine sit more. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to strategically start using a little more of the WD-40 to go in. For example, here, this is an area, and again, and this is actually true, if you ever go, let's say you have a machine that's clean and not having these problems, and you need to oil it. Your owner's manual should show you the oiling points, even those underneath. Obviously you have to get the tray off because by the 70s they're already trying to prevent us from servicing our own items, consumer items. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the WD-40 here. I'm not washing the machine because what I'm really concerned about is the areas of the machine where metal moves against metal. And that's what we really want to focus on because that's where the problems are. The machine doesn't get frozen up if there's old oil sitting on the middle of a drive shaft like where I'm pointing at right here. In fact, sometimes old oil, not necessarily grease, but old oil on parts that are not having to move against each other can actually help prevent flash rusting appearing if the machine is ever exposed to moisture. But in this situation, as I mentioned in the last video, someone went to town with it with grease in the wrong place, and of course, we have more areas to lubricate because this machine has a lot more features than, say, a 100-year-old Singer 15 class. It's neither good nor bad. It's just the reality of the fact that the more features you get, the more complexity you get, and that's true in just about anything mechanical. All right, there's a little lever here. It seems to be moving, but I'm going to give it just a little bit. Again, I don't want to douse the machine. We don't need to do that. It's not necessarily all you're going to do is make a mess. And even though I think I showed you that the the linkage for the feed dog drop, which most of you never use on your machines, I restore them anyway. I'm a big believer that anything that is meant to work should work, as long as it's possible to get it back. Okay, let's take a look at where else do I want to. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to zoom in even a little more. And let's see, right here, this is not picking up. Here we go. Going to have to shift my, here we go. There's a spring-loaded lever over here. I'm going to just put a little, like I say, just a little bit of the WD-40. And again, do not spray the motor. You don't want any of this stuff near the motor. It's basically, don't put any lubricant in the motor. Just don't. Trust me. I'm going to do a video series on motors, and when I do, and it's not about taking them apart so much as simply maintaining them. And some of the older motors do require lubrication, but only specific places in the motor. You can actually cause great harm to any electric motor if you start lubricating it in the wrong spot. Okay, and you can see, now you can see the undercarriage pieces start turning. As I'm turning the hand wheel. You can't see my hand, but I've got my hand on the hand wheel. pulling it toward me. Now, there are areas that need to be lubricated on the machine that aren't always obvious when you're looking at it straight on. So it's helpful to actually come in with a bit of a side angle view, and you will see now that I've zoomed in here for you, there's a little, looks like a horseshoe shaped, it almost looks like a wrench, but it's part of the mechanism of the machine, and there's a cam. Watch as it spins around, and this is an oscillating machine. That's why it keeps wiggling back and forth. It's not a rotary, obviously, or it would simply spin 360 degrees. So that little area is an area that we are eventually going to oil, but for the moment, I see grease in there, so we're going to put a little bit of the WD-40 in there. Got a little bit more than I really wanted. It's kind of hard to control these spray cans sometimes. I almost wish I had a liquid that I could drop in, although it is nice sometimes to have the ability to spray some of these lubricants, or in this case cleaner. You just saw me mistakenly call WD-40 a lubricant, which it is definitely not. Okay, now up here closer to our shuttle and bobbin case is another area that needs to be cleaned. It's right here, and as if I turn, you'll see it moving. It's another, notice that coming up, it's almost like another wrench shaped part of the linkage, and it's moving up against this end here, this bolt end. It's not really a bolt, but now I'm doing this again because I'm simply trying to dissolve and soften this old grease, because that grease is really causing a lot of issues and it's not helping. I'm actually also going to put just a little bit in here. Now, okay guys, back up to the top and side of the machine. As you remember, this is the area, the top of the machine is the first area that I started putting WD-40 into, and of course it's still been sitting there doing its thing and still trying to develop. And even after spraying it in my pressure bar lift is still stiff. I mean, it's having problems, serious problems, because the spring itself, this is telling me that the spring itself is actually also stuck with grease, as well as the pressure bar mechanism. Now, I'm going to see if I can get this visible to the camera in a way that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, let's get this angled in for you. I try to take advantage of good light when I can get it, because it's very difficult to photograph some of these things and get them on the video for you, but I just think it's really important to do so. Now, notice I still, when I'm trying to turn this knob, this inner plastic knob, she's just not wanting to go. She is not budging. Even the stitch length, which is starting to move for me actually, a little bit. So that's, again, you wiggle a little bit as you start to see things loosen up, and then you apply more cleaning solvent. Okay, now here's the top end of another one of those wrench style linkages. Let's go back down once again into this section where we have all of this high quality steel. I'm going to zoom in even more for you. Now what you're looking at, folks, is, this is one of the first times I've gotten really strong light on this. Remember, just on the other side, I've got my screwdriver here. You see me pointing right there. It would help if I turn the camera. There we go. Right where this is pointing with my screwdriver, that is the back side of the plastic knob on the front. And that's where so much of that knob control is based. And this is why I was mentioning earlier that plastic knobs are fine because they're attached to metal linkages. But if your metal linkages are not working and you push those knobs, you're going to really harm the machine, and that's a shame because you're trying to save it. You don't want to harm your own machine here. Okay, now I'm going to zoom back over to the other side. You can see some of the grease is starting to wash off, but it's not so much the aesthetics of how it looks, but how it's actually hopefully going to function better once we're done. Now, I'm going to show you. When you see the side door pulled back, you can see directly above, you're seeing some of these linkage areas, and I'm going to spray, I need to get it where you can see it. I'm going to get in here and spray down some of these again. I've done it before. And now I'm going to show you, I actually might have, let's see how it turns out. It may be enough light for you can actually pick this up. It's one of the most difficult things to demonstrate. Let's see how this picks up in the light. So you may recall when I was showing you last time, there is a steel lever that connects from the dials over to the pressure bar, excuse me, the needle bar. And here you see it coming out the side of the machine all the way from the dials, and it comes down and it meets your needle bar right here. And the purpose of this is not to make your needle work, it's actually to shift. I just put some WD-40 on this little area here. This needs to turn, and remember, it's going to move. The arm, this arm basically has, it's attached to your needle bar, and it's going to try to get your needle bar to move laterally to create that zigzag stitch. Ah, yes, but if we zoom in a little closer, how does the, what's the bar moving against? And if we can get this stray thread out of the way, let's see if we can zoom in. I'm going to show you what is essentially the place where this happens, and this is a very important lubrication point for this machine. Okay guys, take a close look here, and I'm going to show you yet another movement point. I'm turning the hand wheel, and as I do, you'll see that take-up arm come up. This little point right here. Now on some ZigZag machines, this bar, there's a bar here that moves laterally, and the needle bar sort of floats on it. Okay, the Singer Slant-O-Matics use that design. This Kenmore, however, does it a little differently. Of course, it has this lever that comes out, as I mentioned to you, and attaches to the needle bar. Now, I've given you yet another angle, and so now you see the lever I've been describing. Hang with me here. It's attached to the needle bar, but then there's a spot here where that needle bar needs to slide in and out. Okay, it's basically going to move like this, and it's going to slide in and out. It's almost like a little trough, and it needs to sit in there, and someone put grease in there, and it is cemented good. So again, you'll notice I didn't try to do the whole machine. I've been doing sections at a time to see what kind of progress it would give me in terms of being able to get the machine to unlock. So if I go over, and now I'm going to go to my stitch width and see if I get any kind of movement. Nothing. Now my lever up top, it actually is moving. If I turn my knob, I've got my hand on that stitch width dial. Now watch what happens. You see the lever drop? Okay, I pull it up. Okay, so we know that the lever is actually turning. Now watch the connection point and see when I turn, I'm going to turn the stitch width. Now watch here. This is where the lever attaches to the needle bar. Now watch. It's actually moving ever so slightly. Watch the lever itself, and you'll see it moving. So that function is starting to move against the needle bar, but the needle bar is not itself moving. So I have to determine if it is going to be, trying to slowly diagnose where exactly is my, my frozen point, right? I'm gradually going through and trying to unfreeze it. Okay, another camera position move, guys. I'm going to show you something. Remember down here where I pointed, and I'm actually going to put some WD-40 here. I told you that this zigzag mechanism works on the lever attached to the needle bar, and it slides in a groove on the side, but this piece here, I misspoke before, this actually also has to move because it moves, the whole needle bar mechanism moves in and out in a lateral fashion. You don't need a macro shot of my finger. It moves in a lateral zigzag fashion, right, back and forth. And right now, in spite of the fact that the lever is moving, the stitch width knob, I can get it to move, but I'm not getting the needle bar moving yet. So what this tells me is to take my own advice and to be patient. Once again, I'm going to let this machine sit and not give up. And you saw me, I've sprayed more WD-40 into the linkages. I'm focusing, after having done some WD-40 on the bottom side of the machine. I don't think that was part of its primary problem, but I didn't know. You had to find out. You got to take the pan off and look at it. It needed that anyway. I don't know that that's going to help us with our zigzag very much. And one other thing that we need to do, I just noticed this, and if you didn't notice, if you did, please point it out to me. But notice that the last sewer that used this machine had a straight stitch foot. Now, if it's a zigzag and multi-stitch capable machine, why did it have this? Because someone needed or wanted to sew a delicate fabric, and they didn't want the zigzag feature. I will be taking this off. Notice I don't have the machine plugged in. And if I had it zigzag working and it came over, the needle would hit the foot, but it would be fine. But again, once I turn it on, this foot has got to be off, either with no foot for testing, or I can also have the zigzag foot. Because remember, there is no software. My brain just kicked in and realized it because the machine will not tell you that you have a straight stitch foot when you go to do zigzag. Because the sewer is the brains, the machine is the brawn. And my own software in my head took a little while to kick in today, but thank you for your patience. Anyway, patience is the key word here. And I am still hopeful. Nowhere near ready to give up, just remembering that to take my own advice and to remember that it takes patience to unfreeze something that may have been frozen for years. I have no idea. I don't know when someone attempted to lubricate this machine, they put the wrong stuff in. I have no idea. It could have sat out in a shed for 15, 20 years or more. You just never know, right? The untold history of what people do to their possessions, even those that once cost a great deal of money. But again, out of respect for the engineering and the incredible machining that went into this device, I'm going to keep trying. And the point of this is not just to save the machine, but I wanted you all to, again, to see me, I'm fairly experienced at this, but see me go through and struggle and basically hunt around for solutions to try to get this machine back to working order. It's not always a linear process. You do some here, you do some there, and if you get frustrated, walk away from it. Just let it sit, kind of contemplate it, think on it, sleep on it. Sometimes your ideas will come a week later and you're like, oh, I know what's wrong. So I know that sounds a little pie in the sky, but it's true. I think a lot of the puzzles we solve, no matter what we're trying to do, sometimes we can't always solve them all at once. And this machine, what is this, my third, fourth video on this thing now? Obviously, I'm not going to solve it in one fell swoop. But I think that these machines are worth it, And if you ever get a machine like this, and you work and you work and you watch these videos and you keep working, even if you don't end up saving this machine, you will learn from the process, right? Think of it as a workbench for school. You're learning how to go in and explore and tinker with a machine. And again, you haven't invested much in it. And this, I used to do this early on, and I told you I've only ever lost 2 machines to salvage parts that I couldn't save. But I learned an incredible amount from those 2 machines, so they're not a waste. And of course, the parts are incredibly valuable and wonderful to have. So anyway, thank you for watching and hanging in there with me. The Kenmore is still not anywhere close to running, but I'm getting a little more movement every time. So I will keep going and trying. In the next video, I think I'm going to open up the side panel. We'll take a look at that belt that I mentioned in the last video to see what's going on inside there. And we'll keep at it and see how it turns out. I appreciate you all watching. If you have any words of encouragement or ideas, please share them because we're all here to learn, and that includes me. Thanks for watching, everyone.